sea had always called to me, its vast expanse a reflection of the wild, untamed world inside my own heart. As a child, I spent hours on the shore, mesmerized by the waves crashing against the rocks, wondering about the mysteries they hid beneath. But it wasn't until I became a sailor myself that I learned the truth, that the ocean harbors not just treasures and beauty, but also horrors. It began on a routine voyage, just another trip across the Gulf of Bengal. The ship I was on, the Sandstorm, was a reliable cargo vessel carrying goods to distant shores. Our crew was small but experienced, seasoned sailors who knew the sea and its moods. We had crossed this stretch of water countless times, but this time something felt different, something unseen. The first sign came on the third day, when the sky turned an unnatural shade of gray. The sun was still high in the sky, but it cast no warmth. The air grew thick with humidity, stifling. It was as if the ocean itself was holding its breath, waiting. That night, as I stood at the helm, something caught my eye. A dark shape in the distance, moving unnaturally fast through the water. It was too large to be a fish, too small to be a ship, and yet it seemed to glide effortlessly toward us. I called out to the crew, but when they looked, it was gone. Just as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished, swallowed by the night. I told myself it was nothing, the kind of trick the mind plays on a sailor tired from the endless horizon. But that wasn't the only strange thing to happen. Over the next few days, the crew started acting differently, irritable, distant, and nervous. They spoke in hushed tones, avoiding eye contact whenever I asked about the strange sightings I had heard rumors of. Whispers about a sailor, long lost, a man who had vanished years ago under mysterious circumstances. One evening, when the sky was bathed in the eerie glow of a blood-red moon, the first mate, Jackson, came to me. His face was pale, and his hands trembled as he held a weather journal. "Captain," he said in a hushed voice, "you need to see this." He opened the journal, revealing a series of cryptic entries, most of which were hard to read due to their age. But there was one entry that stood out. It was written in neat handwriting but with a tremor, as if the writer was trying to keep calm but was slowly losing his grip on reality. "We found him at last, the sailor who had been lost for years. But he was not the man he once was. His eyes were hollow, and he spoke of voices calling to him from the deep. He warned us to leave the waters, but it was too late. We're all damned now. He was never meant to return. Underscore," the entry ended abruptly, as if the writer had been interrupted. There was a crude sketch of a man's face beneath it. Hollow eyes, a mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. I shuddered as I stared at the image. Jackson seemed to sense my unease. "The sailor they speak of," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "is the one who went missing all those years ago, the one we never found, the one we thought was lost to the sea." I turned to face the sea, the waves now crashing harder against the hull. The wind had picked up, carrying with it the scent of salt and something else, something foul. "Captain," Jackson said, his voice shaking, "there's something on board. I don't know what it is, but the men, they're scared." That night the storm hit. It came out of nowhere, a sudden torrent of wind and rain that battered the ship and sent us careening off course. The crew scrambled to secure the sails, but the storm was relentless. As we fought to stay afloat, a scream tore through the air, a blood-curdling, primal scream that came from below deck. We rushed to the source of the scream, only to find the ship's cook, Charlie, standing in the galley, his face ashen and eyes wide with terror. He was pointing at the corner of the room, his voice choked with fear. There's something there." We all turned to the corner, expecting to find a rat or some other mundane threat. But what we saw froze us in place. A figure draped in ragged clothes stood there, its back to us. The figure was gaunt, its skin pale and stretched over its bones, its hair matted and slick with seawater. But it wasn't the appearance that chilled us. It was the fact that no one had seen the figure come aboard. Who are you?" I demanded, stepping forward. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face that was both familiar and alien. It was the face of a sailor, one that I had seen in old photographs and sketches. The hollow eyes, the sunken cheeks, the grin that seemed to mock us all. "Don't you recognize me?" the sailor asked, his voice a rasping whisper. "I am the one you left behind, the one who never left the sea." The air around us seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my skin prickling with the knowledge that we were no longer in control of our fate. We were not alone. "What do you want?" I stammered, stepping back. The sailor's grin widened. "I want nothing, but you are mine now, just as I belong to the sea." The storm outside raged louder, and the ship creaked and groaned as if it were being pulled into the depths. The sailor reached out, and as his hand touched my arm, a vision filled my mind. A vision of the ocean, deep and black, filled with the bones of those who had perished at sea. Faces twisted in eternal anguish, their hollow eyes staring at me, accusing me. I screamed and pulled away, but it was too late. The ship lurched violently, throwing us all off our feet. I scrambled to the deck, but what I saw there made my blood run cold. The sea was no longer just water. It was a roiling mass of blackness, filled with shapes that twisted and writhed beneath the surface. And in the center of it all, the sailor stood, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "You are all mine now," he whispered. "The sea never forgets." As the ship sank beneath the waves, I knew that I would never escape. The sailor's grin burned into my memory as the darkness of the sea swallowed me whole. And then, nothing. I awoke in the darkness, disoriented and gasping for air. For a moment I thought I had survived, thought I had awoken from some terrible nightmare. But when I looked around, I saw that I was not alone. The ship was gone. The sea was gone. I was lying on the shore, a place I didn't recognize. The air smelled of salt and decay, the sky dark and overcast. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy, as if it had been submerged for years. And then I saw him, the sailor standing on the shore, staring at me. His hollow eyes gleamed with triumph. "You should have stayed with us," he said, his voice a low, mocking whisper. "The sea never forgets." And as I stood there, my legs shaking beneath me, I realized the truth. I wasn't alone anymore. The forgotten sailor had returned, and now I would never be free.